Cats are some of the most adorable little creatures. Have you ever been in a room with a cat, or even a couple of them, just rolling around on the floor, bathing in the sunlight? I have. In moments like that, everything becomes soft and slow. It's truly what I imagine it to be like if I were to live in a Studio Ghibli movie. It's not just Hmong people, it is across multiple cultures that have stories about dark or mysterious forces taking on the form of a cat. And over time, the association has stuck, giving cats a bad reputation. While I think that it is unfair for the cats and they are not to be blamed at all, there are some weird stories, like this one that was recently shared with me. I used to live in Fresno, California. As a child, I was really attached to my nitai, so I would always sleep over at my grandparents'. I guess you could say they lived in the projects. They lived in a small apartment complex. It was made up of 3 buildings lined up in a line, with small alleyways running between the buildings. All 3 buildings were fenced in, so once you were inside the gates, it felt like you were basically in a closed-off little neighborhood. There was a front gate and a back gate. My grandparents lived in the middle apartment building. Behind their building was a garage-looking structure. This was where all the trash bins were stored, so everyone came there to throw away their trash. The complex was mostly filled with Hmong families, and many had been there long before I was even born. Everyone knew each other pretty well. Usually every night, some of the folks would voluntarily check to see if both front and back gates were secured. This became a thing because there were so many incidents where gangsters or robbers would run through the apartment complex while being chased by cops. On this one particular night, my grandma decided that she would be the one to make sure all the gates were locked.
大姑母天
No, cho trộm tu là con đây chỉ nhỏ nà. Cũng một cơ đại lắc cá cho chua của lò sẵn à.
She insisted that I stay with my grandpa, but I refused and followed her anyway. We went to the front gate. It was locked. We then went to the back. It was also locked. Lastly, we stopped by the garage/trash building. My grandma twisted the doorknob and it was unlocked. Thinking someone was probably in there, throwing trash away, she opened up the door.
Mẹ à, con nhỏ tiểu sáng đầu lò cùng sẽ hổ xe bùa môn ngọ.
As she went inside to check, I stayed just outside of the door, staring at my grandparents' apartment building. Their unit was on the first floor, so from where I stood, I was looking directly at their bathroom and bedroom window. It got me thinking about the week prior, where my cousin and I, as a prank, came out here and knocked on the window while my sister was showering. While that was playing in my head, I suddenly felt a squeeze on my arm. It was my nitai. I hadn't realized, but she had already stepped back out from the garage. Squeezing my arm, she suspiciously pushed me behind her, and we slowly backed away from the garage. I was confused. I looked up at my nitai, and her gaze was fixed on something deep in the garage. I shifted myself behind her so I could peek through the small space between her arm and the side of her body. That's when I saw what my grandma was trying to shield me from. In the garage stood a human-sized figure with the body of a woman, but the head of a cat. That thing was big compared to my kid self. It stood a lot taller than the trash bins. while it was preoccupied with digging through the trash.
Mẹ à, cho hai lô na, wo te yu mu che.
My Nitai remained in front of me, blocking me from the garage, and we slowly backed away. But I was an annoying child. I blurted,
Tay, tôn da ya chi.
Shh.
Hả? Tay, tôn da ya chi na hả?
Shh.
It was already too late. We had already caught the thing's attention. It was looking directly at us. My Nitai grabbed my arm and she dragged me as we ran.
Có chị ơi, một số lúc những cái là ha, tôi chả mua in địa á chỉ走nhau đồ hậu liệu.
没把那个对，结果什么摔下。
My grandpa was a veteran who fought in the war, so he knew how to work guns. He grabbed his gun and marched outside. My Nitai and I got on our knees and we started praying inside the apartment. Moments later, my grandpa returned, but he said he didn't see anything. That night, we laid in bed, but we couldn't fall asleep. We kept hearing cat meows from outside of the bedroom window where the garage was. My grandparents would look out there, but see no signs of anything, let alone a cat. They prayed throughout the night, and as morning approached, it finally stopped. My grandma demanded that my mom come pick me up that morning, and after that, I wasn't allowed to go back there for a long time. I was too young at the time to really grasp what had happened, and eventually the memory just faded from my mind. I am now an adult, almost 30 years old. I didn't find out until a few years ago when I remembered the incident, and I finally asked my grandma about it.
Tay, 그분들 같은 더 예전에 전혀 배내로 파매구나. 음음 사이 허우가 와서나. 이거 그냥 악시졌어 호나.
Tôi lên tay rồi sáng chạy có chuyện cho bà nó.
누가 내 돈다 이거 오잖아 하. 군도 또 만내었으나.
Tôi một số lúc những cái là ha. 我家ที่บอกเนี่ยโรงเรียนเนี่ยติ้งหนึ่งแต่เสียวว่าโรงเรียนต่อหัวโรงเรียนต่อหัวมีหนูน้าเราหัวชุดชกที่เนี่ยนายอ๋อโถเนี่ยตัวหนูชี้ให้รู้เลยอ๋อแต่สิมากูน้าหนูให้ตัวหัวกูรู้ลื่นเนาะผมก็มาช่วยตัวหัวลุงกันล่ะสุดเจหนูที่ให้chỉ muốn lăng thừa à một cú sự lại
Tay, tôn da ya chi.
thằng đầu tiên nó cho hắn cho lo chỉ lo ở cho nhà lo bé ư tia li chè cụ thể li chẳng cầu có thể chăm bài ư thiệt lo một chuyện lo mù tao can đầu nó mì lo con nó khó trái mà cô tới tao xong cầu lo cụ thể chỉ bố con này cho mấy viên cho tôi bị chỉ ư lo mù.
I've heard multiple stories from other Hmong folks about a similar cat-like woman creature. Till this day, I don't know what it was or who it was, but I hope I never find out. When you see someone wearing that red and white string around their neck, you don't even have to ask. You just know that they're going through something serious. It almost always means something is following them, something that doesn't want to let go. My name is Michael, and that was exactly what I had to deal with when I was 8 years old. Back then, my 3 brothers and I used to share a room with my parents. They slept on one side of the room, and we were on the opposite side. Our bed was right by the front-facing window, and I was the one that slept closest to it. We had been living in that house for a while, and nothing strange had ever happened. However, on one random night, while everyone was fast asleep, I kept tossing and turning because I wasn't tired. I laid there in bed, listening to the ring in my ear. I could hear faintly someone was calling my name. I thought it was one of my brothers snoring out of their nose, and that it just so happened to sound like my name. But the closer I listened, I realized it was coming from outside of the bedroom window. Cha was my nickname, and only my immediate family called me that. Everyone else called me Michael. If everyone was sleeping in their room with me, then who was that out there calling my name? I thought to myself. I slowly pulled the blanket over my head, and eventually I fell asleep. The next night, anxiously, I tried my hardest to fall asleep before everyone else. But there I was, once again, laying wide awake while everyone else was deep in their sleep. Even though I was scared, I managed to ignore it for the first few nights, hoping it would just stop. But night after night, like clockwork, I lay there wide awake, knowing that it would call my name. After knowing that nothing was really going to change, my fear grew. I decided to one night wake up my older brother.
What? Jason, do you hear that?
Hear what?
There's someone outside calling my name.
I don't hear anything.
I can't fall asleep. I'm scared.
You wanna go play the game downstairs?
I am so thankful for my brother because, from there on, I frequently woke him up in the middle of the night to go downstairs and play games. That was the only way to stop hearing the voice. This then became the new routine every night.
자, 연모와 집행호구 끄는 배야. Then why don't you just answer it and ask what it wants?
Is it gonna stop calling my name if I answer it?
I don't know, but if it's calling you that much, just ask it. You can stand up for yourself.
You can see where this story is going. My brother's heart was in the right place, but we were too young and too naive. I was stupid enough to take the suggestion seriously. The next night, while laying in bed, I was rehearsing in my head what to say if I heard my name being called from outside.
When that stupid ghost comes, I'm gonna say, "What do you want? Stop calling my name and go away, or else I'm gonna vacuum you up." What? What do you want?
It said my name even louder this time, as if it was coming from under the bed. I got up and jumped across the room onto my parents' bed and frantically woke up my mom. My parents didn't waste any time. They had my grandma look into it that very night to see who it was that was calling my name every night. Even as a top shaman, my grandma couldn't quite say what it was. All she knew was that the entity was disguising itself as a young girl my age, and underneath that facade was something dark, vicious, and full of bad intentions. My grandma tried doing all that she could, but I continued hearing my name at night. Everything that was going on took a toll on my health. I had no appetite and I started losing a ton of weight. My skin turned pale, and I became unhealthy looking. My sleep became little to none. It got to the point where my mom and I would start sleeping downstairs in the living room, and we would leave the TV on every night. That's when my parents and my grandma started taking me to multiple shamans. I would say every 2 to 3 weeks we would be at a new shaman's house trying to figure out what was going on with my situation. Each of the shamans that we went to said different things, and clearly none of them were really able to help. Finally, someone recommended a shaman to my mom. This shaman was known for her gifted insight, and she was in high demand. My mom booked an appointment that was 2 months out. After 2 long months of waiting, my grandma and my mom took me to her house. When we arrived, the shaman led us to the living room where her altar was. After my mom gave a brief explanation of what I had been going through, the shaman immediately began her work. We watched as she lowered her veil, and she started chanting while slowly rocking in front of her altar. The thick scent of burning incense filled the air, and the room began to feel heavy. After a while, without turning around, she spoke to me. Mind you, I was 8 years old, so I didn't know what she was talking about. My mom responded in my stead.
Lỡ hay hồ nói câu của mà lỡ hay tiền mua nó lấy. Lỡ hay tiền dùng tiền rồi nó một xí yên bỏ nó nè. Lấy thì tối ra nó gọi mua nữa có hộp thử say mà.
My mom and grandma scrambled over to me, examining my head and brushing my hair aside. It was a round, smooth, bald spot at the back of my head. No one previously noticed because my hair was covering it. The shaman then walked over and stopped in front of me and my mom. She extended her arms and pushed the hair aside. Not my hair, but my mom's. On the back of my mom's head was a small bald spot identical to mine. My grandma gasped, as if something had clicked for her.
Tụi ta nó có ý sự tấu là nè bây giờ. Tụi hù có tụi mẹ tốn đây nè mà chỉ vô nửa là khát cái loạn á, nửa loạn được có loạn cái ó. Thì thầu con muốn nên người thiệt chỉ tụi có, chả nó nên thiệt tụi có cho tụi cho kỹ thì nửa khi là vô là tỏ nữa.
The shaman sent us on our way and promised she would do what she could. But in the meantime, my mom was instructed to rub my bald spot with the black carbon buildup from the bottom of pots and pans. Whatever happened after that, I was kept in the dark and didn't quite know what was going on. But every time I saw my aunts and uncles, they would all tie strings on me. Little by little, the voice calling my name at night grew less frequent. It all finally stopped for good after my oldest uncle came to visit us. He didn't say much, but he tied a string around my neck and said to not take it off. Apparently, he imbued it with special powers to ward off the evil spirit. I went on to live my life as normal again. After a decade, at the age of 18, that's when my mom told me the truth behind what this thing was that was calling my name.
Thầu nè tại bây giờ nhớ tìm lo tê bây giờ mà mua ta một chỗ lột tỏ ninh thôn đấy cái cô chơi em nhận xe cô nhọc có tên không tốt cái sữa cái ninh thông lối dọn tới cái phèn cái chán tông từ hai tia cô chơi dùng cô nó nè tôi chỉ tông đấy cái cô chơi đi mỏ luôn Ino che cojojo tí ăn có nên thằng đứa con à cô che gì ta che cô chỉ đi ôn nên ba ta non tu bu je yin no tên ni số chết xia hòn đầu giống kề yin mo lăng tư tốt trở của lông bể hồ im mò tụi tây chậm mà lồng vỏ chỉ hình kiếm play lôi chạy rồi tao hôn tao cá nó mà hai con này tay nó sấy nè ha cũng tao hồ tôi đồ ít tha thùng tôi này tay mà lấy biết cho nó cái này tay theo hai đầu cố tè giờ cũng muốn có tôi nó là này tay chỉ giữ có cố gắng chỉ mua vô có gì thế thì chỉ vô để thằng tôi là một mà trên cho họ cũng mà theo nó nên hồ hồ cũng luôn bề tụi hồ cái luôn bề theo tụi rồi vậy cũng tao hồ để giờ tí tôi sửa.
I've been fortunate enough to have my hair grow back, and I no longer have the bald spot. It's been so long since everything happened. I'm glad I no longer hear my name being called at night. But sometimes, late at night, I still find myself listening, just in case. When my family immigrated to Canada from Laos in 1980, they settled in a modest home in the city of Kitchener, Ontario. The small house was old and had creaking floorboards. All the lights inside the house were dim, casting shadows throughout the house at nighttime. One night after everyone had gone to bed, my auntie was alone in the kitchen, sweeping the floor. She took small, light steps as she worked her way through the kitchen. The only noise that was present was the quiet brushing sound that came from the broom's straw bristles. She suddenly stopped when she heard moving footsteps that were coming right from behind her. She quickly turned around to an empty room. No one was in sight. She stood there for a moment, then turned back and kept sweeping like nothing had happened. She took one step and swept. The footsteps followed. She took another step and swept. And again, the footsteps followed behind her. This time she stayed in place and didn't move. The footsteps kept coming from behind her, even though she stood in place. That's when my auntie yeeted the broomstick backward and ran out of the kitchen. She hurried down the hallway toward her bedroom. As she passed the dimly lit hall, her eyes caught something. There was a shadow flickering across the wall, trailing behind her own shadow. Its arms looked stiff, swaying back and forth as it moved fast, like someone running just behind her. Heart pounding, she tried to be brave and spun around to confront it. But there was no one. Just her, standing alone in the empty corridor. The next morning, my aunt shared her experience with my other aunties and uncles over breakfast. Being so new to the country, my grandmother believed that the spirits of our ancestors had followed us to Canada. She believed that what my auntie experienced was just our ancestors watching over us. To bring peace of mind, my family performed a small ritual to make offerings to our ancestors. Thankfully, there were no other incidents after that. It feels reassuring to know that our ancestors are still with us. Or are they?